what really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions. So let's get right on into it. The three-ring circus, actually it's a four-ring circus, down in Florida is continuing, and there has been a development. This was coming on out just before we went to airtime, where federal prosecutors in Florida have found that certain election documents in Broward County were altered. And specifically, they're talking about a type of document called a cure affidavit, which are due by 5 p.m. the day before the election. But prosecutors have discovered these altered documents showed the ballots could be turned in on one day after the election. So that shows intent to defraud right there. And that's going to be an issue. So the federal prosecutors are looking. The Florida law enforcement, not enthusiastic. They're now looking. I would like to see this really blow up in everybody's face, because we have gone on for way too long with a crooked election system. Now, Governor Rick Scott has decided he will step down from the state panel responsible for certifying the results in the state's highly contested elections. And you know, he basically wants to avoid accusations that he's trying to use the authority of the governor's office to influence the outcome. But Daniel Nordby, who's a lawyer for the Republican governor, told a federal judge Wednesday that Scott will recuse himself from the canvassing commission. So we have the League of Women Voters of Florida and one other group filed a lawsuit trying to basically get Scott out of there, so that he would have no influence whatsoever, because after all, he's getting in the way of our vote riggers. We can't have Governor Scott running around there. You know, Brenda Snipes has got work to do and little time to do it in here. Okay, now they're trying to get a recount done, and they're running into problems, supposedly. We have been told that down in Palm Beach, the ballot counting machines overheated and broke down. And as a result, the election supervisor down there, Susan Booker, says they now have to rerun all the early vote tallies in the Senate race. And they're just going to keep on running those ballots over and over and over and over again until the Democrats get the result that they want. Now, as of early today, story coming out of Chimp Planet Blogspot, 2 days after state officials ordered a statewide recount, Broward still hasn't started. And instead, they're going to court. They're getting judges to say, oh, we need a very long deadline. You have no idea how long it takes to fake all these new ballots. And, I mean, it's really obvious what's going on here. Now, again in Florida, there was this GOP candidate named Caldwell. Now, Matt Caldwell was running for the State Agricultural Commissioner. And as of the end of Election Day, it looked like he had won. He had won his race by 40,000 votes. And because there were only another possible 30,000 votes that could come on in from the outlying areas, Matt figured he had it, but lo and behold, a miracle happened. 83,000 new votes showed up. And I think it's time that we start looking at number of votes versus number of voters, because it's starting to look like we're seeing that in a lot of different places. Alrighty. Now, as I mentioned before, there is now officially a criminal investigation into Brenda Snipes. Fox News host Sean Hannity announced this Monday night. There is a criminal investigation in both Broward and Palm Beach counties in Florida. Okay, we're going to take a phone call here. George in Texas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, it's funny. They can't find 60,000 of Hillary Clinton's emails, but boy, they could sure find 60,000 ballots out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is, if I were the president, or right now, because it's not just Florida it's going on in Arizona and a lot of other places. There's a few districts in Texas where they're trying to flip the results, and that is, I would call in the federal marshals and have all the ballots impounded.
I would agree.
And bring. I mean, because the thing is, this is an insurrection going on, and the thing is, I hate to say it, but Alex Jones don't do any justice because he's just broadcasting the problem, and all he is doing is compounding it. And the thing is, look at the Battle of Athens, Tennessee. What was that about? That was about citizens taking matters in their own hands and saying, you ain't rigging this election. Because you had a corrupt law enforcement and a corrupt government back then.
Well, just like we have today.
And the thing is, and like I say, but you said, I would have federal marshals there and just have them impound the ballots. And I tell you, Snipes and they supervise elections, and including them officers. And the thing is, and somebody sat there and go, well, voter fraud is a victimless crime. I said, no, it's not a victimless crime because
that's ridiculous.
Look how much harm these people.
It is. It's completely ridiculous to claim it's a victimless crime. Of course, there's a victim. They're stealing the country. They're stealing your tax money.
Well, the thing is, when I brought up the topic of a paper ballot, one in supervised election, he sits there and goes, that would be too time-consuming and too costly. I said, no, wouldn't. I said, for my class election, which had a population of 4,000 students and people running for class president, treasurer, and all like that, I said, I ran it on a ditto machine for the fraction of the cost of the ballots. You know what I mean? Like I say, paper ballots, it's cost effective, and like I say, it won't be time consuming.
Well, I mean, they're using paper ballots anyway, and one of the areas where fraud is possible is these ballots are actually being printed out on computer printers right there at the polling place. So they've got an infinite supply of them unless they run out of paper and ink. But what we're seeing happen in this election, it's 2000 all over again, and a lot of people are standing up and saying, this is absolutely insane. We had 18 years to fix these two counties, and it didn't happen. We had 18 years to fix the system as a whole, and it didn't happen. Every election, we see more and more of the chicanery going on, and the American people say, what are you going to do about it? And you'll get politicians who say, yeah, it's time to fix this. We're going to make it better. And it doesn't happen. And even Trump dropped the ball on this. He campaigned on the idea that our elections could be fraudulent, and he wanted to fix that. And it didn't happen. He started this Election Integrity Commission, and the state election commissions immediately stonewalled, saying that this was a states' rights issue, and the federal government doesn't have any right to come on in there with oversight. So Trump just dropped the whole ball and said the Department of Homeland Security will make sure that the computerized voting machines are safe from being hacked, which is nonsense when you look at how easy it is for these machines to be hacked, as documented in that HBO film, Hacking Democracy.
Well, the thing, it just comes apparent for one thing. It's like this voter fraud. It is not the Democrats that are the enemy. It is the blue blood, weak-kneed Republicans who will not stand up for the integrity elections. Like I say, the Democrats, they're the criminals. They're going to do what they're going to do. But for the leadership in the Republican Party, they're allowing the Democrats to walk all over them.
Well, they kind of got into a bad habit over years after year because of something that was called the consent decree, and it goes back to where there was a lawsuit by the Democrats who accused the Republicans of voter suppression by having security guards in the polling place, and Republicans could not investigate Democratic election fraud without the permission of the Democratic National Committee, which of course was never going to happen. Snowball's chance in the dark regions. And over the years, the Republicans just sort of got used to the fact that Democrats are going to cheat and we can't do anything about it. Except this last year, the consent decree went away. And I don't know if it's because the GOP leadership wasn't paying attention, but there's now no legal restraint for them to go on in and start investigating and exposing all this stuff.
Like I say, Judicial Watch is in there. I'll tell you that right now.
Good for them.
They're down there right now. What's that?
Good for them.
Because, like I say, it's going to take public interest groups probably figuring out what's going on. Because I'll tell you what, the GOP are not doing anything about it. And I just think, I think we're going to have to start investigating the Democrats for fraud.
Let's investigate them all for fraud.
Exactly. Anyway, Mike, I got to get going. I'll let you get back to your show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. We're going to do a shout-out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And over in New Mexico, we mentioned this briefly, but it's worth a repeat here. And there was this Democrat, Xochitl Torres Small, and this Republican, Harold, thought she'd won. On election night, she was way, way ahead. And she's still not conceding. She was on an interview with Fox News. She's not conceding to Torres Small. And she questioned the counting of the absentee ballots that provided the margin of victory for her opponent, because the media outlets called the race for her. And she gave a victory speech. And then all of a sudden, the Secretary of State's office called and said they had magically found another 4,000 ballots that had not been counted. And then an hour and a half later, they got another phone call from the Secretary of State's office saying, oh, we found another 4,000 ballots. But rest assured, the election is fair. There's nothing unusual or untoward going on around here. And all of these ballots were absentee ballots in Dona Ana County. And apparently, this one county for this election received more absentee ballots than the last two elections combined. They're not even trying to hide this stuff. Their attitude is, what are you going to do about it? If you don't like the outcome of the election, we'll send Antifa over to readjust your attitude here. David Knight over on his show is saying the Democrats are going completely insane as election fraud reaches fever pitch. And they're out there saying, how dare you imply there could be voter fraud? I mean, you're challenging one of our most cherished institutions and casting doubt on it. And there is a double standard out there. When the Democrats are investigating a Republican for possible election fraud, that's the patriotic thing to do. But when Republicans are investigating Democrats for possible election fraud, oh, you're just flat out wrong. It's a conspiracy theory. You guys are just wacko. Put on your tinfoil hats again. Now, Brenda Snipes is feeling the pressure. She's already announced that she is going to step down at the end of her current term as Broward County election supervisor. And she's out there saying that Broward has never missed a deadline. Well, actually, she already did early this week. The judge set a deadline, and she just simply ignored it. And Brenda is out there just trying to downplay her past history and just say, just because she got caught destroying ballots in 2016, and just because she found more ballots in 2012, and all this doesn't mean that anything crooked is going on here. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones here. Layla in Ontario, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I'm wondering, is there anything in any of the documents or founding documents that allow for an election to be redone? I mean, everything about the United States and its legitimacy is premised on the principle of consent of the people.
Yes.
And it's not premised upon the questionable actions with regard to the election. Can it be done over?
Well, I don't think it ever has been. Let's see. I'm doing, and that's a stunning oversight on the part of the founding fathers.
Well, I think they never imagined the kind of scenario we're now experiencing, where treason and decay is so is so unreined and free to do as it wishes within this nation. I mean, they acted in good faith and expected that American citizens, the people, would always act in good faith, and they would hold their representatives accountable. Now, if the representatives are abusing the trust of the people, then they have lost their legitimacy. And is there no way to challenge it? In, of course, the courts, the judges.
Well, yeah, the judges all work for that. Basically, we do what Gandhi did. We all, you know, once we understand that the elections are fraudulent and we don't really know who won the election. All we know is who we're told won it, and it's increasingly, you know, oh, the Democrats. Forget about the Republicans. Forget about the fact that they were ahead on election night. You know, we found all these tens of thousands of ballots all over, and the Democrats are now in. Once you acknowledge that the elections are fraudulent, that contract between the government and the American people is in fact broken, and you are right. The government that is claiming authority by means of fraudulent elections is illegal and illegitimate. And the American people have every right to just start ignoring them, refuse to do what the government tells them to do, refuse to send their children off to die in their wars of conquest, and basically say, we are a land without a legitimate, proper government. And of course, the government's going to have a different attitude. They're going to send a bunch of people around with guns to say, you know, we are your government. He is your king. And, you know, you're going to be hanged, drawn, and quartered, and burned at the stake.
May I ask one more question? And it's not related to the election, but the killing, the tape recording that Erdogan handed over to a variety of countries that recorded the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. Was that not a violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Missions, whereby the receiving country is not allowed to interfere with the action? I mean, it was obviously Erdogan was spying on the Saudi embassy, if that in fact was a legitimate recording. Has anyone raised that issue?
I think Saudi Arabia has certainly raised it, and you're right, it would be a breach of diplomatic protocol, but on the other hand, real world, yeah, everybody is spying on everybody else's consulates and embassies trying to glean critical intelligence information. It may be that the audio recording was not made by Turkey, but may have been made by the Saudis themselves, and somebody leaked it out. We don't really know.
Yeah, it's just odd. It just makes a mockery of the whole concept of the immunity or the sovereignty of diplomatic missions. But then, of course, everything is becoming a mockery. I mean, if we allow this election to stand and do not respond as the people whose consent is required for those who claim to be governing legitimately, if the public does not respond in an effective manner, then that's it. It's toast. The things are done.
I agree. And anyway, we got to take a break for commercials. Layla, thank you for the phone call. We've got another caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And since Election Day, a week ago yesterday, Democrats have picked up over a dozen Republican House seats and 2 Senate seats. And they're not going to stop. They're going to keep right on going, bit by bit. They've got until January to basically try and whittle away at the Senate. And by the way, this basically proves fraud is taking place. Because if all of these erroneously called races were really just honest errors, then the errors should fall equally on either direction. There should be as many errors that favor the Republicans as favor the Democrats. But it always favors the Democrats, always favors the Democrats. They're cheating. They're stealing the country. They don't care what you, the American people, want for the future of this country. They have their liberal vision of men using the ladies' restroom and gender fluidity and open borders, and by golly, they're going to bring it to you whether you want it or not. All right, let's go back to the phones. Philip in Illinois, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Long-time listener and first-time caller. I'm not able to listen to your show live. I listen to it as a podcast late at night.
Okay.
So I just want to say a couple things. First of all, I agree with everything that you're saying about this election. It's totally stolen. It's totally wrong. And I would like to see, that remedied. I don't personally know how to do it, except for people to call into their representatives and put the pressure on them to take a stand to make sure things are working the right way as far as our voting and elections are concerned. The other thing I wanted to say, and I do apologize for not being able to follow your show live because I know it's a little bit off topic, but it's something that concerns me just about every time I listen to your show. And that is the amount of disdain that we seem to have for President Trump these days. And for what he campaigned on, he walked the walk, but he doesn't necessarily talk the talk on a lot of issues. And I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot by not continuing to give him the support that he really needs. Here's a guy in a position that surely he had no idea what he was getting himself into. I mean, he should have an idea. But then, of course, the powers to be and the deep state and everything else like that, perhaps he got himself in over his head a little bit. I don't know. I just don't know. But at the same time, I hear a lot of callers call in about how disappointed they are with President Trump rather than continuing to give him some support on the good things that he does do. And I think that by the time 2020 rolls around, the elections roll around and stuff, I kind of think that possibly the Democrats are going to use that information against us. I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot there. And that's pretty much all I want to say because, again, I can't listen to the show live, and I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time getting off topic. But if you could comment on that now or some other time, I'd appreciate it. And thanks for all you do. Thanks for all that you do. You're a good man with great intentions, and I appreciate who you are, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for the phone call. The issue with Donald Trump, first of all, you need to remember back in 2016, I was very much working my rear end off to get him into that Oval Office. And a lot of us were in the independent media. And he campaigned on a bunch of promises. And yes, we know that candidates for office will make promises they can't keep. But we really did think Trump was an outsider who meant what he said. And then he gets into the Oval Office. And rather than getting rid of the swamp, he opens the door and starts inviting the alligators and water moccasins to be on his staff. And he did somehow come under control. And it could be just that he's kind of weak. I hear he's easy to manipulate. And that's bad for a president to be. Frankly, the only way I would support Donald Trump in 2020 is if Hillary does run again. And I'd have to put a clothespin on my nose, but I would do it. But Trump has let us down. He's let his own base down. And I think one of the more obvious places where that is visible is how the independent media that got him elected is now under censorship attack by the corporate online media, and outside of a few tweets, Trump isn't doing a thing about it. In fact, to be very honest, sometimes it feels like the entire administration has stalled in the middle of the road because except for flinging sanctions onto other countries and launching wars, it doesn't seem like a whole heck of a lot is getting done. And that's my perception from out here in Hawaii.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, real quick.
I don't disagree with anything that you said, Michael. Not a thing. I agree with every bit of it. But somewhere along the way,
Support and loyalty are a two-way street. Anyway, we got to let you go, Philip. We got to take a break for commercials. Back with more phone calls after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go right back to the telephones to Rick in Arizona. Aloha, Rick. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Election fraud is on my mind, Mike.
Well, good for you.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is all BS. and it's all TV, it's all-star wrestling, because where's Trump in this, calling up Dershowitz and getting a court order to stop this and get a supervised situation for this? It's just like when Obama was a president, the Republicans did nothing. You know, we had the House, we had the Senate, we didn't have the executive office, but we did nothing against Obama. So what we got now is people that love Obama in Florida, I guess allegedly, are juggling the books on the election. But who is stopping it? Where's the great leadership from the great Trump? Where is it from the Senate and the United States Congress?
I agree.
It's nowhere, because it's all BS. It's all BS.
Well, no. What you're missing is that people who are in the government now, in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, they are the beneficiaries of a rigged system. They're not going to do anything to change it because they want to just have a little button they can push and get returned to Congress without worrying about the voters. And that second part is where it's really important. Members of Congress don't want to have to bother with dealing with the hoi polloi anymore. Their constituents, they want to spend all their time sucking up to their big money donors. And so if we have an election system that is being rigged openly, that frees the members of Congress from the control of the American people. And I imagine they're running around the Capitol building going, free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last. That's really what's going on here, is the disenfranchisement of the American people. They expect us to pay for everything. They expect us to throw our children into their designated wars of conquest. But other than that, they just want us to sit down and shut the heck up.
Yeah, it's all BS, and I think they want it. However this turns out in Florida is how Trump and the Congress and the Senate wants it to be, because they have the power to stop this BS. And it's just like, you know, I don't have stupid on my forehead. You know, I understand how the law works, and there are protections against this. But I guess this African American woman who's been accused of rigging votes in 2012 is just doing the same thing today, and nobody's stopping it. Okay, thanks for taking my call, Mike.
You got it. Yeah, she was also accused of destroying ballots illegally in 2016 with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I mean, she's openly broken the law, and nobody's arrested her. There's another aspect you need to keep in mind. The government is desperate that you, the American people, continue to believe that the elections are, for the most part, honest and fair and verifiable, and that if there's cheating, it's just a little tiny bit over here and doesn't really significantly change anything, which is nonsense. We can see with our own eyes right now, between what's happening now and what happened back in 2016, the fraud in our election system is rampant. It's widespread all over the place. But they want you to believe, because if the American people all of a sudden wake up to that reality, our votes don't really matter, they're just taking our money and our children from us, I think that would hasten the day when the central government does come crashing down, Soviet Union style. All right, let's go back to the phones. Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike, I want to echo what already two previous callers have talked about, and that is that the great quote silent and silenced majority in this country needs a leader. There's got to be somebody around which we can rally for this. That there's nobody there. There's nobody championing what you were talking about, what we were talking about, honest, fair elections. There's nobody really championing that at any level at all. You know, the aggrieved politicians who are losing these seats, they're doing it, but they're out of power for the most part. And so we have nobody to coalesce around. And,
I imagine probably a lot of these. I would imagine that a lot of these Republicans who've been kicked out of their House and Senate seats by all this Democratic chicanery, they've probably been threatened to guarantee their silence.
Well, it might be, and you know, as somebody who's you know, supervised these elections as a retired guy, and I've had multiple precincts in multiple elections, including multiple presidential elections, although not this last one. I can tell you that most of the poll workers in Los Angeles are black or Latino.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the poll workers. Those are the Indians and the people that are the soldiers on the front line. And you've seen what kind of how politicized even they have become.
Yes.
Even the poll workers. You see it all the time. I mean, you had some great clips there. Then you have the people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the head of the Democratic Party, at least a couple of years ago before she was thrown out.
Yep.
But this is very elegantly done, Mike. It's the media silences everybody, including the alternative media is being silenced and basically censored, taken right off their means of delivery. The intelligence agencies are in on this. There's the George Soros sort of thing. And then there's the whole ethic of shutting up the people who would oppose that, which is basically the 70+% of the country that is white. They're being shut up and marginalized. The great majority is being marginalized with the shouts of white supremacists and all that other kind of white privilege and all that crap. But so there's no. Not only are there no leaders to coalesce around, the people who are being aggrieved, who are having everything stolen from them, and in the end, the people who are stealing it, even at least the Indians, they're being stolen from them, but they're too stupid to see it, really.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, there's nobody left. We've been so divided and so skewered and carved up by hyphenated American identity stuff and our media, which you know what I think about the media and who runs that. George Soros and the Democrats. It's in the intelligence community, which is part and parcel of all this. It's the only way, Mike. I can't see any way. I mean, there's no other way except to fight this. I don't even know how you go about doing it, as everybody has sort of semi-articulated it. We have to fight, but how? We don't have any outlets in the press. We don't have a leader around which and the people who are being stolen from more than anybody else are being marginalized.
Yes.
So how do you fight this? But we have to fight.
Well, as I've said before, I'm opposed to any kind of a armed insurrection, rebellion, civil war. I don't think the American people are ready for it. I mean, back when you had the Battle of Athens, Tennessee, that occurred right at the end of World War II. And so all those men living in that town, they were experienced combat soldiers. And they didn't hesitate to basically arm themselves and take care of that election. This generation today, yes, we've got some veterans who've served over in the Middle East, but by and large, most of the males in this country are not really conditioned or trained for combat, and a lot of people are going to get hurt needlessly. I would favor, and again, I still think there's a Soviet Union-style collapse coming to this country, but I still think that a more Gandhi approach is our best course of action, and that is knowing that the U.S. government has delegitimized itself with all of this election fraud. We just ignore them. We refuse to fill out the paperwork. We refuse to send our children off to fight and die in their wars. We just say, go away. You're not a legal, legitimate government. I don't recognize you. You broke the contract.
Well, Mike, I agree with you. I don't want to physically fight, but we have to be willing to physically fight. The very first thing we've got to do is to coalesce, and we have to meet at least their marches and their mobs and their surrounding the ballot boxes with our surrounding the ballot boxes peacefully, if possible. But there has to be a willingness there to not stand for it, because the other guys have, even during the election, have showed themselves to be very violent.
Yeah, but so you also need to remember a lot of those people were paid to be there. There's big money behind this push to make the United States a socialist country.
There sure is, but we have to coalesce. We have to coalesce around somebody, the right person. We have to do it with the intention of being peaceful, but we cannot be deterred away by the threat of violence, because they will try to bully us away like they have in the elections, like Antifa and the brown shirt stuff that went on with Robert Kramer and all that stuff, the Democratic Party, and the George Soros people. We have to be ready to meet them eye to eye and not blink and not take a step back and say, it's gone this far, we're not going any further, and that's it. So, and let the cars fall where they may, but at least give them a chance to step back. They won't, but we got to give them a chance.
I think if they were confronted by a peer force, most of these bought and paid for groups would back up. They're not really there out of a sense of commitment to an ideology. They're there because they're getting a paycheck for it. And like mercenaries anywhere in the world, they want to be able to enjoy that money after it's all over. But again, that's not to suggest that it's time for us to take to the streets. And I wish I had a better solution. I wish I really did. And I know I get a lot of emails from people saying that my advice to just be patient and wait and prepare to take care of yourself following the collapse, they don't like that. They're like you. They're impatient. They want something to be done. But in the real world, I'm sorry, Batman is not coming to clean up Gotham City. Superman is not going to come down and get the bad guys. The Lone Ranger isn't going to ride over the hill. We're sold these kind of myths as part of the propaganda to keep us from standing up and fighting for ourselves. The lesson we got in all those TV shows. Guys
that have answered the call and the draft and the volunteer and everything else. And we have this mythology of standing up and fighting for freedom all around the world, which of course is crap, and I fell for it too. But this truly is standing up for freedom here. But I can tell you what's going to happen. Eventually it will come to what I said will happen, and it will start out peaceful, but the Democrats will do exactly what the Soros guys and the globalist guys did in the Ukraine, and just get a sniper out that shoots one side and shoots the other side, and then it's on.
Just like they did in Kiev.
Just like they did in Kiev. But we have to be willing at least to stand our ground. If we don't, then they'll run all over us.
These are definitely dark times, and I think what's frustrating to a lot of people is the realization the Democrats are cheating the election, and even the people they are cheating don't seem interested in doing anything about it. The government's descending into thuggery. The Democratic Party has clearly gone outlaw, and everybody seems afraid of fighting back against them. So,
I know.
Yeah,
but that, in the end, it has to be done. At least at some level, we have to meet that. It's like the old thing they used to say that Russian Soviet foreign policy was to probe with the bayonet, and when you encounter, to keep probing, keep sticking it in until you encounter steel, and then you withdraw it and probe somewhere else. They've got to encounter steel here. These guys, they're probing, and at some point, we have to show them the steel and hope that they'll back up.
Well, again, I'm hoping the American people are paying attention to this, because where the government is weak right now is its own credibility. The trust of the American people in government and corporate media is at an all-time record low. And there does come a point where a population just throws up their hands and says, this isn't working anymore. And we've seen it in countries like Romania, which ended rather badly for Ceausescu, where the population just says, this isn't working for me. We saw it in Crimea following the coup d'etat in Kiev. The people of Crimea said, this is not my government any longer, and we're going to break off and we're going to go find something else. So we could actually see the United States itself start to balkanize over these issues of whether government is taking care of the people or not. Anyway, listen, Peter.
Mike, you've been pointing that out for years.
Yeah.
But I hear. Sorry, Mike. Thanks for hearing me.
All right, we're going to let you go here. The phone lines are really loading up here. We're going to go to Larry in Austin. Larry, I may have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
That'll be fine. Yeah, I that was a really good call, and I think that frustration is definitely palpable. My thoughts on it are that there's a big difference between the ideology and the way people feel, and I'm just going to say right and left because I really I hate the labels, but people on the right I see as people who still believe in America and the ideals, regardless of all the details of who the people were that wrote the Constitution and all that, whether or not they were the landowners and whatever, the difference in times. I think that basically the people on the right that we say are right, I'm just going to call them the Americans, they truly believe in liberty and freedom. They really want, that's the ideal, and they just want to be left alone. And the people on the left they're swept up into this control thing where they just want to control.
Yes.
And they don't, sometimes they don't even realize it, whatever. But they are mobilized and they're passionate about it because they are swept up just like the people from Mao's followers. And forgive me for making that comparison. I shouldn't do that, but I'm just saying that they're swept up into this thing, and they're swept up by the media, and the media is 100% controlled, all of it, across Fox and everything, and they're pushing globalism, and the globalism thing will lead to that sort of oppression.
Aloha America, welcome back to our show here. We're still talking with Larry in Austin. We're talking about the elections, and everybody listening to this program or reading the website, you got to make a real big stink about this. The Democrats want this to go away. The corporate media, they're focusing on Broward County because it has the sizzle factor from 2000 Bush Gore. But if you look at the number of seats that have been flipped in the last week, most of these are not being reported. The problem is huge. They want it to go away. You Rivero's Rangers, you need to get this information out there and say the Democrats are literally trying to steal back the midterm elections. All right, so Larry, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you, and it kind of goes back to your point earlier about the fundamental going on. I have absolutely not one single iota of faith in our voting system whatsoever. I believe it is a sham from the bottom up. I seriously doubt if they count any votes, to tell you the truth.
Well, they just go through the motions and running them through there. See, here's the thing. They can't simply come on out and say, this is your new senator, House of Representatives, or president. They can't reverse a landslide. That's what happened in 2016. Donald Trump won the White House in a landslide. They couldn't reverse it, or it would have made the election rigging that honest. So they are counting the votes to sort of find out what's really out there, and more to the point, how much they're going to have to cheat to reverse that. And that's probably the reason why Brenda Spines refused to say how many votes they had cast down there in Broward, because she didn't know yet how many more votes they were going to have to fake in order to reverse that situation.
Yeah, I just I don't know. You say they fear us not believing in the system. Well,
yeah, because we would disconnect.
They need to know. And people like me, I don't know. There's probably a lot of other people who think like me, and I absolutely have zero faith in the system whatsoever, in that voting system whatsoever. None. Yeah. There's not even the landslide theory. I don't have any faith in it. Maybe, but I really don't have any faith in it. And when it comes to the what the gentleman before was talking about, I believe that the Americans, there's Americans and there's people that fundamentally hate America. They want to tear it completely apart. And I don't believe that there's going to be, I believe there's going to be a collapse, and there needs to be a collapse, and there probably already has been. We just don't know it.
Well, it's starting to happen right now, and we just need to be prepared to pick up the pieces and restart the country, and kick all those old career politicians out, and just start the country again, the way it was done originally, by businessmen, by craftsmen, by people who knew how to actually make things work. We got to take a break for station identification.
They're just going to step into the void with tyranny. That's all that's going to happen.
Okay, Larry, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And let us take a phone call from Frank in North Carolina. Aloha, Frank. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike. I agree with the last caller. I don't have any faith in the system, the electoral system. I don't think the government has any legitimacy. You got Donald Trump in there. I think maybe perhaps he was an anomaly, like you say, with the landslide theory. But he's shown that he's not going to do anything. He can't. I mean, I don't know exactly why, but they've got him. They've got something on him, or they threaten him, or whatever. And he puts on a good show, though. I mean, he gives good lip service sometimes, and kind of gets your attention. You're like, wow, this guy's got a little bit of fire in him. Maybe he could do something. But the thing is, I don't see anyone else out there on the horizon. Once they do away with him, there's no one else. But as far as the collapse theory, the Soviet-style collapse, I don't have any faith in that either, because I think, generally speaking, the crap rises to the top. I think it's just going to be the same thing, the sheep just being put on by the aggressive people that are willing to do whatever it takes to get to the top. And, they're only interested in feathering their own nest and using whatever.
That's been true throughout history. That's the norm throughout history. But let me draw a parallel between what's going on in this country now and events in ancient Rome. Now, for a good part of its history, ancient Rome was a true republic. Then it fell into the age of the emperors, starting with Marcus Licinius Crassus. But it still continued to work because the people of Rome still believed their government was good. And was really working for all of them. Of course, that was not true. Under the emperors, Rome's government became very, very corrupt. But as long as the people believed, the system would continue to work. When the Roman people began to see for themselves just how dysfunctional the government was, with like Nero and Caligula, that's when it began to fall apart, because the Roman people just were less than enthusiastic about working hard to support the empire. And we're going to see that happening here. We're already seeing a problem with our military being less than enthusiastic about, being in combat in all these other foreign countries. And so that's what can bring down an empire. And let's be honest, all empires eventually come crashing down. And we, again, to go back to the parallel with Rome, we may be seeing a repeat of the very slow collapse of the Western Empire after Rome broke in two, and the Western Empire continued its decline into the Dark Ages, and the Eastern Empire, of course, eventually became the Ottoman Empire. But all empires fall, and I'm seeing the signs of a dysfunctional, inoperable government and economy. And what I'm really seeing are politicians and money junkies who seem to be trying to plunder the place, like they know it's all going to come crashing down soon. And the last official act of any government is to loot the nation.
Right, they know. The players that, in Washington, D.C. and all know. They're just paying lip service to us. They're really feathering their own nests so they can be as comfortable as possible after the collapse. But, just as a finger in the eye to the establishment and the enemies, I'm going to support, I believe, this guy, Patrick Little, who basically right now what he wants to work on is putting out there that, it's okay. It's okay to be white. And just watch the enemy's visceral reaction that, no, it's not okay to be white. And also to see who the leaders of that reaction are, which are, it's organized Jewry that's behind all of this as far as I'm concerned. They bought off all the churches. I mean, the Jack Van Impe's, all these other guys. I mean, if you turn them on, I turned on Jack. I used to listen to Jack Van Impe like 20 years ago. I turned him on, flipping through the channel Sunday morning, and he was on there. And the first thing out of his mouth was, everybody get down on your knees and praise Israel, blah, blah, blah. And he threw his hand up in the air. He looked up with a big smile, knowing smile like he's smarter than everybody else. And I'm going to be raptured out of here, blah, 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 blah. I mean, this is all just nonsense. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you, too. The American male is not conditioned to stand up to this. They have become effeminate. And that's just the way it is. I say when it comes time, go down with a fight.
Yeah, if it comes to that, I imagine probably most people will go down with a fight. I'm trying to figure out a way to avoid that. But again, I see the signs of impending collapse, whether you're drawing the parallels from ancient Rome or the Soviet Union, or for that matter, any of a dozen other countries that were rich and powerful and then fell apart because of chronic mismanagement inside. Anyway, so Frank, we're going to let you go. Thank you very much for the call. We're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates just now rejoining the network. And back to the phone system to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, come on. Even Jesus had to pick the whip up once, right?
True. And there's that other part in the Bible where his name was actually Joshua, not Jesus, where he said, I come not to bring peace but the sword. He was a revolutionary. He really did make a play for the throne of Judea.
Not Roddy Piper who come to kick butt and chew bubblegum?
And I'm all out of gum.
Yeah, I love that movie. Mike, remember, this is going on. I want to repeat this because I said it before, all around, the Western world. It's the same plan. White people are bad. This is bad. That's, it's just orchestrated, with the purpose of, diluting the population's cultures and open borders and all that. And, but, Mike, this is like an organized crime because, the media is all in on it. They're all on the same page. Because remember when Trump was running? The media in Germany and France and Britain, they're all like Trump's Hitler. Over here, Trump's Hitler, Even Fox News, remember? When Trump was running against the fools on the stage and they're ripping on Trump and Fox News was against. Yeah, it's a mafia, and I hate to say this, but if they bring a knife, you bring a gun. If they send one of yours to the hospital, you send one of theirs to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. That's these. Well, your previous caller said these people are like Maoists. They're not. It's the same type of. It's a cult. It's a cult member. Yeah. They're like a. That's why you can't talk to these people. They've been conditioned. But now it's like worse. They're indoctrination camps.
They really are. I've seen that Common Core curriculum, and that's all it really is. When I was a kid going to grade school, our education was basically, learning how farms work, how to fix tractors, and how to drive them and stuff like that. Basic math, English, and science. Nobody talked to us about gender fluidity. And we all knew that if we walked into the wrong restroom, we'd get a, switch across our back.
And no talk of playing with Play-Doh.
I don't even know if it existed back then. I forget when Play-Doh was invented.
And it's Mike, the war's already started. Like when Scalise got shot on the baseball field.
Yeah.
That's the opening salvo. Might be not like 50 people getting shot, but that is what these people are capable of. And the people in power and the media and the university, they don't have to go out themselves, even though some of them do. They send their brainwashed stooges out to do it.
Yes.
And there's no link back to them, just a crazy man or whatever. And
got to maintain deniability.
Or they'll blame Trump. I mean, as big as Trump has a big mouth and Twitter and a lot and stuff like that, but they blame him for everything because they just don't like him or nationalism or whatever. But hey, Mike, I just want to say real quick, September 17th was the day. There's no more air attacks going into Syria, so it's been a while already.
Yep.
Lieberman's gone. He stepped down because Netanyahu having a ceasefire.
Yep.
And that's pretty much. On the stock market was down another 100 or something, right? Today,
yeah,
so.
it took another clubbing. It's like 8 days solid of decline, and no, the Dow ended 205 down. There was an effort to try and shove it back up toward the end of the trading day, but it didn't stick. And a lot of people are saying if this keeps up much longer, there will be a panic. So,
and there's an unstableness going on with Israel now, and then Saudi Arabia with their escapade at the consulate. And I mean, there's really a lot of crap going on.
There really is. It does feel like the degree of craziness and chaos is tending toward a maximum, no question.
All right, that's all I got to say, Mike. Have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch over to Richard in Alabama. Aloha, Richard. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, if you had one more chance to vote for George Wallace, would you?
No.
Well,
I mean, it's kind of a silly question anyway. We go through life, we make the choices that we're going to make, you can look back and say, I should have done something differently, but it's a pointless exercise. And as I get
but
older,
you still wouldn't vote for him anyway.
I'm saying the question is moot. Because as I get older, I'm trying to avoid falling into that trap of looking back over my life and saying, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, I could have done this, I could have done that. It really is a moot point.
Well, it's a painful question. You're on talk radio and they're looking for excuses to shut down websites and talk show hosts and stuff. And
they are.
So you have to be very, very careful. So I reckon if there was a remedy for the situation that we're in, and it was a racist, bigoted remedy, you would have to turn it down.
I very much would turn it down because fanning up any more racism or bigotry is only going to make the problem worse because that's what the other side is doing. With all of this, it's bad to be white and white supremacism. And they're using weaponized race. And if we fall into that same trap, that guarantees conflict.
You do understand they outnumber you 5-1. And they have the right to move to this country, but you don't have the right to move to their country.
Well, that's definitely a major, major problem, and that's why I'm waiting for Trump to close these borders. And it doesn't look like
I think it's too late.
He's not going to there's happen. A lot of damage that's been done in this country, just like there's a lot of damage that's been done in Europe. But the migrant horde is just now starting to get to the U.S. southern border, and they're already getting through. They're climbing right over those fences. And so it's another big, epic fail, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think it would be a racist, bigoted thing to deport them. So I don't think we can deport them.
No, it's not a racist, bigoted...
We're not racist, are we?
Well, illegal isn't a race. That's the issue here.
I know it.
they're entering the country illegally. They should be deported. It's got nothing to do with their race.
Actually,
it's everything to do with their actions.
Everything. Actually, the United Nations has the authority to issue them USA passports and citizenship instantly, and there's nothing that Donald Trump can do to stop it.
No, that is not accurate.
Oh, yes, they're doing it right now.
No, what they're filling out...
The United Nations African Refugee Resettlement Program.
Hang on. What they're doing down here with the migrant horde is they're filling out the paperwork to request asylum. But no, in point of fact, the United States cannot confer citizenship for people into a member state. And I know that's something that a lot of people think the United Nations either can do or ought to be able to do. But what's going on with the migrant horde is they're filling out the paperwork for asylum, and then they're using other existing United Nations obligations to say, well, they've got the paperwork for asylum, you have to take them in and process them. And what Trump is saying is, okay, but we're going to put them all in tent cities. We're not going to release them into the general population while their paperwork is being processed. Now, last week, Donald Trump came on out and basically said that any criminal activity by any of these migrants would immediately void their request for asylum, meaning the instant they set foot over that border onto U.S. soil, all of that asylum paperwork is null and void. Anyway, listen, Richard, we're going to let you...
How about the ones that come in on the airplanes?
If they don't have the proper paperwork, they've got to be sent back. That's just the way it is.
But
anyway,
the United Nations is bringing them over.
Richard, I think you're letting your imagination get away with you a little bit here. I know there's the refugees who are coming on in, but the United Nations does not have the legal right to take these refugees, dump them in the U.S., and say they're all of a sudden U.S. citizens. It doesn't work that way. So, Richard, thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to let you go and switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, Mike, these elections, they're really bumming me out, you know?
Oh, me too.
You're talking about illegitimacy. At least I hope one thing. I hope maybe our troops around the world and see this and to start asking themselves, why should I? What legitimacy did this government to send me here into such and such place? Let's say in Syria or something. Why, or even Afghanistan? Why should I risk my life? Why should I kill other or help kill other people? Fire one shot at my so-called, they're not really enemies, but they're making them out to be enemies when I'm being sent over here by an illegitimate government. And I'm hoping people who think about joining the military start thinking about what's going on. And, you know, they still get most of their recruits out of Middle America.
Yes.
You know, the more patriotic parts of this country. And when they see, hopefully, what's happening in all over the country now, and how these elections are getting overturned, maybe they'll get a little wiser and understand it's not the country is worth fighting for, but this government is not worth fighting for, especially when it's illegitimate fights on top of it.
Yes.
They need to understand the enemy of this country is not overseas. The enemy of this country is right here. They reside in Washington, D.C. They reside in the corporate boards around the country, in the oil companies, in the
Wall
in
Street
the big banks, in the Wall Street, all over Wall Street. Criminal organizations like Monsanto or whatever they call themselves now, Bayer. These are the what's that? All these defense contractors. These are the enemies. These are the Lockheed Martin. These are the enemies of this country, and they're not overseas. They're right here. And what I'm disgusted about is I think Trump would have every right. What did the gentleman called earlier said about sending U.S. Marshals over there? Or was it? It might have even been that lady that I think she's Palestinian originally. Said that should send U.S. Marshals over there to take custody of these ballots, and I think that's a good idea. You cannot just let these people get away with it. This is outright thievery, and it takes, and it's just takes away all legitimacy from.
Well, you know, one of the big
from
problems
government.
that we're dealing with is every time they say that a box of ballots was left in a warehouse or in a rental car or whatever, the chain of custody is already broken, and they should not
Of
at
course,
that point
it's illegal.
be counted. I mean, that's how weird it is. Anyway, listen, Mark, we're going to let you go here and take a break for commercials. We got other callers waiting on the line. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones, and we're going to start here with Chris in Las Vegas. Aloha, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, thank you so much, Michael. Aloha to you, and I appreciate your comments, Omar, but I must take strong exception with one of the word terms you're using to describe what is facing America and terming it a collapse. I think word terms, descriptors, and semantics, the meanings of words, are very, very critical and important. I think what we're truly seeing in America, and have been viewing as first-hand spectators for a number of years, is the implosion, the destruction of the republic. They've been sucking the wealth out. We saw Obama delivering pallets of so-called U.S. federal debt notes to some of our adversaries over there, buying bribes or maybe buying a future palace in some place. I'm not sure what he was using the money for, so-called. But the sucking of wealth out of America to basically to destroy it and to invoke the Cloward and Cliven model of pressure from above, pressure from below, to destroy this country is so diabolical and complex that most of the American people, being victims of the so-called free public education system, although I think free is more expensive than most of us comprehend, is a very devious and evil plot. What do you think?
Boy, that's a lot to be looking at. I think we know that we are heading into a period of economic turmoil, and there are different groups of players who are actively working to try and turn it to their personal advantage. And it's kind of like when a pack of wolves brings down an antelope, the wolves start trying to grab the biggest piece for themselves. And I think that's what's going to be happening within our economic system. As it becomes more and more obvious it can't continue, it's just going to be grabbing, you know, every man for themselves, grab this silverware and head for the lifeboats.
Well, I don't strongly dispute that descriptor. I think you're exactly right. The pack of wolves are obviously the Soros-funded so-called migrants, which are really an invasion force of terrorists and other mercenaries being deployed to America and ferried by Soros-funded junkets. I think more accurately termed a terror van than a caravan. And so these things are so diabolical. Very few humans have the ability to observe what's termed asymmetrical or amorphic war, which really is shapeless and formless in a different form. Like you say, economic is but one phase of it. There are many different aspects of their form of war that are being deployed against America. Not to overlook PSYOPs mind control, the mind fornication of public relations, which is formerly known as propaganda until Edwin Bernays and Gordon Wasson changed the meaning of the word or put a new word to use it. That's why I say words are important. But thank you so very, very much for letting me chime in today, and carry on and keep doing a great show.
All right, well, thanks an awful lot here. And I think what we need to realize is what George Soros is doing, has done to Europe, is doing to the United States, is basically weaponizing migration. Because what is the purpose of a war between two countries? Well, it's where this one country wants to go into the second country and replace its society and replace its population through force of arms. Well, take out the force of arms and instead play to people's sympathies and say, oh, these migrants here, they're fleeing squalor and they're fleeing terror in their own country, and you have the barbarians at the gates, and the people inside the gates are opening the gates up, and that's kind of what's going on here right now. Okay, Art off the grid, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I'll tell you, it's nice. It's nice to hear other people out there who are familiar with the Cloward and Piven strategy. It just warms the cockles of my heart to know that I'm not the only one that remembers these things. But I wanted to talk about what's going on here in Georgia, and I know a lot of people just seem to be like really not paying much attention to Georgia, but I don't think they see they're really grasping exactly what's going on here. Earlier today, we had her name is Nikki. I can't even talk today. Nikema Williams.
Okay.
Now she is one of the state legislators here in Georgia, and she was arrested yesterday. And she's trying to play the race card with why she got arrested. She's trying to claim that she was standing peacefully with her constituents when she was singled out because she's a black woman and arrested. Well, here's the thing. They had been called in for a special sessions at the Georgia State Capitol.
Okay, I need to put you on hold here. I need to put you on hold. Don't hang up. We'll come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. We're talking about what's going on down in Georgia. And I'm looking at this article about Nikema Williams. And apparently the ruckus was all about that protesters filled the state capitol to demand ballots be recounted from last week's election, including the race for governor. Now, you get a recount if the gap between the two is sufficiently narrow. That didn't happen in this case. And you actually have Hillary Clinton came on out and said that Democrat Stacey Abrams would be governor-elect of Georgia today if the state had a fair election. Now, setting aside the fact that Hillary is projecting again, I think she wants to be very careful about throwing around the idea that the elections are not fair, because that's going to get more and more people saying, let's find out. And that's exactly what the establishment does not want. So, Art...
Well, here's the thing. Not be arrested when the Senate is in session. But here's what they're not getting. When they say this, they're talking about when you are doing the work of the people.
Yes.
Now, doing the work of the people does not mean engaging in protest. And when the order was given, this took place on the second floor rotunda of the Capitol building. I'm sorry, that is not the Senate floor. That is not the floor of the legislature. That is an open area where people are passing through all hours of the day. And it is against Georgia state law to occupy this space with any form of disruptive protest. Now, keeping that in mind, let's hear exactly what the Department of Public Safety said was the reason for the arrest. Demonstrators were charged with language. There was order given to clear the rotunda, and people being arrested, and she was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
What I find interesting is we also have this clown by the name of David Dreyer, who is a Democrat out of Atlanta, trying to throw it up because he's white. He went down to try to help with what was happening. Well, wait a minute. If it was a peaceful protest, what was all the chaos about? And he's trying to claim that she was treated differently than he was simply because he's white. Well, wait a minute. What about the 7 white people that were arrested? I'm sorry. This is simply a case of the Democrats are pissed because they lost, and Brian Kemp has 1.3 traded. So anyway, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, and we'll talk at you later.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go and switch over. We're going to take 2 more phone calls, then I'm going to close the lines because I got a lot of stories to cover here. Let's go to Mike in Brazil. Aloha, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Thanks for taking my call, Mike. Listen, I was going to make first of all, Soviet Union did not collapse. it was Mikhail Gorbachev which dismantled the Politburo of USSR, okay?
Uh-huh.
And this was done with the aid of the CIA and George Soros, okay? He dissolved alone the Politburo of Russia, of Soviet Union, okay? So there is no such thing as Soviet Union style collapse. And it will
Well, wait
never
a minute,
come to
wait a
pass
minute,
in the
wait a
United
minute, Mike.
States.
Let's back up here a little bit. At the point where Gorbachev dissolved the Politburo and dissolved the USSR, the government was in serious trouble because the Soviet population had come to understand all the times they'd been lied to, all the times they'd been abused. Their real history had been revealed to them through the samizdat, and Gorbachev wanted the collapse to be peaceful and orderly, which is why they went through that. If the Soviet Union, if the Politburo had still had the support and faith of the Soviet citizenry, there would have been no reason to take it apart.
Yeah, well, I see your point. I see what you're saying. But the thing is that Mikhail Gorbachev still has an office in that big building in San Francisco called Transamerica Building.
Yes.
Okay, he still has that office today as we speak. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The guy was a globalist. Mikhail Gorbachev, he was a globalist. He went along with George Soros and the CIA and the deep state, okay, whatever they call the deep state today, okay? So what happened? And in Romania, we keep mentioning Romania. What happened in Romania? And I happen to be married, well, I'm divorced now, but I was married to a Romanian woman. And this is not what happened, what you're telling people. What happened is they executed Ceausescu because he had inside information who brought him down, and that was the CIA. They organized that meeting. There was a meeting originally staged for his appearance in the balcony there at the Communist Central Party headquarters, and suddenly there were agents provocateurs, and they started that melee there. Okay, this is what happened. Then the guy got into a helicopter and tried to escape to go to Iran. Okay, so they got him on the way, and they, you know, the rest of the story, right? He was executed in front of television cameras.
Yes.
Okay, but my second point is I want people to watch this video, which is still on YouTube. It's being made by Edward Griffin, and it's an interview with Norman Dodd. And Norman Dodd will explain to the people how the education system was hijacked by the Carnegie Foundation and turned into a communist front. I urge people to look. It's still there on YouTube. I downloaded it. If people don't find it, I can put it back on YouTube. Okay, so Norman Dodd explained that he appointed a woman to check into Carnegie Foundation's dealings. And when she got back 6 months later, she had completely lost her mind, literally. She went insane, what she found out, what Carnegie Foundation was all about. And another point I want to make, okay, is that the Democratic Party, as it is today, as it exists today, it's a criminal faction.
Yes.
Okay? It's no longer the Democratic Party of Jimmy Carter. It's no longer the Democratic Party of JFK. It is a criminal faction. It's a communist organization of Stalinist persuasion. Okay? Imagine if these people get into power. You people will be toast, including you, Mike Rivero.
Yeah,
okay?
I've had that warning many times.
Both barrels. I'm sorry?
I said I've had that warning many times.
Oh, wait, no, you take it from me because listen, I lived in Eastern Europe for many years. I know the Stasi. I know Angela Merkel was a Stasi member, a high-ranking official in the Stasi. Okay, how she managed to become the Chancellor of Germany is beyond me. Nobody would elect a scumbag like her. But apparently, vote fraud is not confined to the United States. It's going all over Europe. Another thing I was going to say. to keep you updated with the situation in Brazil, okay? Bolsonaro, okay, his name is Jair Bolsonaro, the correct pronunciation, Jair Bolsonaro. Okay, the guy, on January 1st, he's going to be the next president of Brazil, and I'm very happy that, well, I couldn't vote because I'm not a citizen of Brazil. I'm an American citizen. But my wife voted for him, and the first thing he's going to do is dismantle all gun control laws presently in effect in Brazil. Because there were so many, last year alone, Mike, there were 60,000 people murdered by firearms, which, according to their laws, should not exist.
Yes.
Okay? I see rolling bands of criminals with AK-47s and M16s in Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo. Okay, where the hell did these people get the guns? That's what I want to know, because possessing a firearm, as small as a 380, PPK 380, you have to go to the federal police, you have to apply for permits, and you have to undergo psychological evaluation. You know the drill, right?
Yes.
Where did these guys get these AK-47s? They're murdering people, kids, in their cribs. You know, I mean, this
they're
is
connected
a joke.
to the drug cartels.
And I hear these leftists, this communist. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, more than likely, the AK-47s and AR-15s, or if they are real M16s, are probably coming down from the drug trade. Remember Fast and Furious? U.S. gives the guns to the druggies.
They go to Paraguay. In Paraguay, they have no gun controls. They have no gun control laws in Paraguay.
Okay.
So that's where I got my gun from. Okay, I have a 40 caliber Glock. I bought in Paraguay for $200, brand new in the box.
Wow.
And people go there and they buy the gun. Well, I'm a good guy. I'm not going to go rob, stick up a store or something like that. But there are people who buy their guns there. They come back to Brazil and they start assaulting people on the street. Put their guns in. I've seen this live on television. I mean, I was horrified. And I told my wife, I said, there's no way in hell I'm going to walk down the street with all my gun on me. All right? So all this gun control doesn't work. I want people to understand this. Gun control only works disarming the law-abiding citizens.
Yep.
It does not disarm the real people for which they were intended to disarm. This is what people don't understand. And by golly, I hope Hillary Clinton is not going to run in 2020. Or I'm going to go to church. I haven't been to church in a long time. I tell you what, I'm going to go for this one.
Okay. Well, it's not just Hillary. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is already out there saying that the Democrats are going to push for complete gun confiscation in this country. I want to step back here for a second with the way you were talking about how Romania came down. I think you have a drastically oversimplified picture of what was going on, because even the CIA cannot go into a country where the population is happy with the leadership and bring down the leadership. That's why in all of these foreign interventions since the end of World War II, they've only succeeded about half the time. And so Romania was easy to bring down because the Romanian people were very unhappy with Ceausescu and his government. And there had been a sporting event that basically devolved into a spontaneous political rally, and it was over in just 2 weeks.
Actually, Mike, I tell you something you probably don't know. The real revolution in Romania started in the city of Timișoara, okay, which is like, I would say maybe 350 miles away from Bucharest, okay, from the capital city. And that's when he started. And you know how he started? They arrested the pastor. His name escapes me. I can't think of his name right now. But he was a pastor, a Hungarian pastor, because Transylvania, where this city is located, is mostly Hungarian and Germans, okay? So what happened was they arrested the guy, and that's when it started, and it spread all over the country. Yes. And, of course, the people in Bucharest, in the capital city, they got the input from these people, and they went on bringing down the tyrant, because he was indeed a tyrant. I can think of maybe not of the size of Pol Pot or Mao Zedong, but but he was a tyrant. Okay?
But well, I mean, I know one of the things he was doing is he had TV cameras on every streetlight watching the population. Gee, why does that sound familiar? Anyway, Mike, I got to let you go, and we're going to take one more phone call from Fred.
Mike.
Bye-bye. We're going to take one more phone call from Fred in Iowa, and then we're going to close the phone lines because I am way, way behind on the talking points today. So, Fred, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I sure come in at a good time. When church and state unite, then the end will come. Just as it was in Rome, from 538 AD until 1798 AD, 1,260 days, a year for a day, 1,260 years, the church used the power of the state to kill Christians. Only this time, it's going to be a lot shorter. And I know you're going to be busy, so.
Okay. All right. Well, Fred, thank you very much. And we're going to let you go. We're going to close the phone lines for a while. May reopen them a little later in hour 3 if I can get through some of this stuff. So here we are. And again, getting back to Broward County, there is this Government Accountability Institute research director, Eric Eggers, and he basically was being interviewed on Sirius XM Patriots Breitbart News, basically saying that Brenda Snipes had, quote unquote, found ballots following an election in 2012. And the election didn't go the way the Democrats wanted. And so all of a sudden, oh, we found these ballots. Now, from where I'm sitting, these are, you've lost the chain of custody. You don't know that these are original ballots. That's a big problem with having people fill out ballots in one place and then trucking someplace else for the counting, as opposed to just counting them right there where the ballots are cast. But apparently, Brenda Snipes has been accused of illegally opening ballots. And the Florida GOP sued her for this, and when they brought her into court, they said, hey, your office is opening ballots outside the presence of the canvassing board. What is your explanation? And Brenda Snipes apparently argued she thought it was okay because her office didn't understand the meaning of the word canvassing. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with more news. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and the phone lines are closed. Getting on back to the circus involving Broward County. Now, Snipes apologists are out there saying they want proof. Where's your proof of fraudulent intent? Yes, it was okay for us to basically slam Brett Kavanaugh on accusations alone, but this is different. This, we demand proof here. And Bev Harris over at Black Box Voting came on out and said, yeah, there's been evidence of intent to defraud by Brenda Snipes. Now, back in 2016, Tim Canova ran for U.S. representative in the Democratic primary against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And after the election, he asked to examine the ballots under Florida's Sunshine Law. Now, in the U.S., the law requires federal ballots to be kept in storage for 22 months, the actual paper ballots. And the Florida Sunshine Law requires that ballots are to be produced for inspection at the request of any person without question. So, when Canova went on over and asked to examine the ballots under the Sunshine Law, Broward County did not allow him to see the ballots. They stalled month after month after month until he had to take them to court. Now, that's a violation of the law. What happened to Canova was obstruction. And when Canova won his lawsuit to see the ballots, Broward County destroyed them. That's ballot tampering. And also in Broward, what are called cure affidavits that were supposed to be submitted before the day of the election. These appear to have been supplied after the election was over. Over in Georgia, there was this big stink where Judge Lee Martin May basically ruled for Georgia Democrats that ballots that did not have birth dates on the voter registration, or who had obviously erroneous dates like the current date, those ballots would be counted. Now, the judge said, yeah, we're going to do this, but there's a problem. How do you know if the person is old enough to vote? There is an age restriction. So it was actually a very inappropriate interpretation of the law. As it turns out, Judge Leigh Martin May is a Democratic supporter. She gave $1,250 to Representative Sanford Bishop during his 2012 campaign. So it's all corrupt here. So basically what we have over there in Georgia is two radical Obama-appointed judges rule in favor of Stacey Abrams in her attempt to steal the election. And apparently U.S. District Judge Amy Totenberg ruled late Monday that Georgia must not certify the election results before Friday at 5 p.m., which falls before the November 20th deadline set by state law. It's Florida all over again. We'll be right back after station identification. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, Senator Chuck Schumer is actually encouraging Florida to just ignore the deadlines that have been established by these judges, and just keep on counting. Keep on counting, until we get the result that we want here. And of course, he said this statement the other day: the more time that passes since Election Day, the better things keep looking for the Democrats. So he wants to stall while more phony ballots are being ginned on up. And basically, this is incitement to commit contempt of court. And Schumer is justifying it, saying, we don't need any deadlines here because the Senate race does not have an electoral vote in the Congress scheduled for December like the 2000 presidential race did when it underwent a recount in Florida. Well, Chuck, I hope that judge does nail you for contempt of court. Anyway, Hillary Clinton is down there in Florida deploying lawyers, organizers, basically trying to get lawyers out there to help in the recount. They're not really helping in the recount. The goal of all these lawyers and all these volunteers is to generate the maximum number of votes for the Democrats and only allow the minimum number of votes for the Republicans. Oh, bad ballot, dangling Chad. And I know they don't use the Chad system anymore here. Alrighty. Now, interestingly enough, Representative Deutsch down in Florida, this is irony. He said that Rick Scott's recount behavior is dangerous. Ooh, it's dangerous because of his attempts to cast doubt on our elections. I'm sorry, Rick Scott isn't the one who's casting doubt on the honesty and integrity and fairness of our elections. It is all the games we saw by the Democrats in 2016. It's all the games that we've seen by the Democrats this year. And I understand the politicians are desperate for the American people to close their eyes and go back to sleep and believe the election system is honest and that everybody who's in Congress deserves to be there by the will of the people. But it's just not so. It is just not so. All righty. Getting on back to Georgia and Fulton County, where a lot of votes were getting thrown on out, and the Democrat Stacey Abrams campaign is pushing on Fulton County to try and reach out to people who may have cast provisional ballots that didn't show up. In other words, they're trying to recruit after-the-fact voters. But apparently, one of the reasons so many of the votes were thrown, there were massive numbers of duplicate ballots, rejected ballots, and non-citizens trying to vote. And a full 1,800 provisional ballots in Fulton County were duplicates, and 1,556 of them were rejected. And again in Georgia, citizens are pouring into the Gwinnett County Election Board office in Georgia as of, well, yesterday, to quote-unquote stop the fraud that is threatening to turn the Peach State's election process into chaos. Now, Republican Brian Kemp, who's the declared winner of the governor's race, has begun his transition to office as governor-elect. But the Stacey Abrams campaign and the Georgia Democrats are running this persistent effort to prolong provisional vote counting in some counties, despite there being no statistical possibility of an Abrams win or recount. The Democrats are using phone banking, emails, texts, and even a campaign-style ad to find provisional ballots that were allegedly disenfranchised, although many Georgia ballots were rejected for reasons including non-citizens voting and non-registered persons voting. Fraud, 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 fraud. Okay. Now, one of our callers called in about this. But apparently this state senator, Nikema Williams, who's a Democrat from Atlanta, was basically agitating within the state capitol to try and get a recount forced there. Again, even though under Georgia law, a recount is not justified because of Kemp's sufficient lead. And it got violent, and 15 people got arrested, and Nikema was one of them. And she's already out there saying, they only arrested me because I'm black and a woman. All right. Let's see. I think we already talked about Yvette Harrell. She was declared the winner election night. And then all of a sudden the Democrats magically found 8,000 new votes. That's in a district that Donald Trump won by 10 points. In 2016. Okay, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network here. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, there's quite a tally of GOP seats that are being flipped to the Democrats. And it's always because of, we found more provisional ballots. And apparently, California Republicans lost a fourth House seat yesterday as late vote counting handed political newcomer Josh Harder enough votes to push GOP Representative Jeff Denham from his seat in the agricultural-oriented Central Valley. And apparently, there are two other Republican-held seats in Orange County perilously close to flipping, as the provisional and late mail-in ballots continued to break for Democrats. This thing is just so obvious. This is just so obvious, and I don't understand why the GOP isn't fighting back and why Trump isn't fighting back. Okay, so let's talk about the Southern California wildfires. Yesterday, they had another flare-up. Well, actually, early this morning, in the south, the Woolsey fire ripped through 50 acres in the Santa Monica Mountains in 30 minutes, driven by gusts of wind up to 85 miles an hour. So the statewide death toll stands at 50, including a couple who died in the Woolsey fire, and more than 200 people are still unaccounted for. Now, shares of California utility companies plunged Monday as these wildfires scorched thousands of acres and continue to threaten life and property. And the victims of the fire are getting ready to sue, because we know that the northern fire was caused by faulty equipment at PG&E. And we know one of the southern fires was sparked, again, faulty equipment by Southern California Edison. But again, a lot of this goes back to Governor Moonbeam himself, because the California legislature, some years back, actually passed a bill to force the electric companies to basically ruggedize those wires to make them less susceptible to wind. And Governor Moonbeam vetoed it as a gift to his friends in the power companies who did not want to spend the money. Okay, this is a great story, and this is one of the stories that revives your confidence in the human race. As you know, over in Malibu, there are a lot of people who are basically cut off. The fire has cut off PCH in both directions. It's up in the hills behind them. They're basically down by the water, and they're having trouble getting some stuff. So this Howard Leet, who was co-owner of the Malibu Rocky Oaks Winery, dispatched his own personal $25 million, 142-foot-long yacht to start ferrying supplies back into that section of Malibu. And apparently this was after his own winery getting burned up. Now, the authorities in Malibu said that he would not be allowed to bring that yacht into the shore. There wasn't an anchorage for it. So a phalanx of surfers and paddleboarders ferried the supplies in. The load included 3,000 bottles of water, 100 gallons of gas, food, shovels, and of course, lots of beer. So, all right, getting into our domestic politics here. Over at the Department of Justice, they have responded to the claims that Trump's appointment of Matthew Whitaker as acting Attorney General is somehow illegal or unconstitutional. And the Department of Justice released a 20-page long memo saying that, yes, it is perfectly legal under the Vacancies Reform Act, the Appointments Clause, and it does comply fully with the U.S. Constitution. So, and have you seen the irony of all this? They're still trying to get Whitaker to recuse himself from oversight of the Mueller probe because of his past political activities. But Hillary's personal lawyer can lead the potential prosecution of Roger Stone. A typical liberal Democrat. One set of rules for them and another set of rules for everybody else. So why is everybody's knickers in a twist over the fact that Matthew Whitaker might become the next Attorney General? Well, he certainly does not appear to be a continuation of these cover-up artist Attorney Generals we've had, like Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch and most recently Jeff Sessions. But basically, the Democrats are freaking out over the fact that right now he's the acting Attorney General and it could be made permanent. Now, Whitaker is predisposed to end the Mueller investigation because they haven't found anything. It's a complete waste of time and money. Now, Whitaker also believes that Hillary should have been prosecuted over the national security violations connected to the emails, and yes, she should have. When the former FBI director had that press conference, and he said, well, yeah, she did all these things, but she didn't mean to do ill, so we're not recommending charges, except that Title 18 does not require intent, as Trey Gowdy kept trying to remind Comey over and over and over again. So I would love to see Whitaker prosecute Hillary for just one Title 18 violation. Now, he's talking about 33,000, one for each missing email here. But just one will do it. One felony conviction, she doesn't have to go to jail, and she's out of the 2020 race. Now, the third reason everybody's freaked out about what's going on with Whitaker is that the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein and his deep state wife, Lisa Barsumian, have presumably been compromised and can open Pandora's box to various deep state activities. Now, interestingly enough, back in 2016, in an interview, Whitaker said flat out that a special counsel is required to investigate the Clinton Foundation. And yeah, that's overdue as well. Well, Mr. Whitaker, you're now in a position to do something about it. So we're waiting, and time is passing here. Here's another story. This is out of InfoWars. And apparently somebody has leaked out a document from the FBI in which even the FBI is saying the Mueller investigation found no evidence of Russian collusion. So now Mueller is probably out there desperate to find somebody that he can indict on something, anything, overdue library books. So it looks like there was at least some criminality and he was justified spending all this money and all this time. But he's got nothing. There's nothing there. And even the FBI is now admitting it. Now, today was the day that Hillary Clinton was hauled before court, before U.S. District Court Judge Emmett Sullivan. And I have not heard how that came on out. But this is basically coming out of the Judicial Watch lawsuit, which wants to compel Hillary Clinton's testimony on the emails and the email server. And also on how Huma Abedin, who was granted a special government employee designation to accept outside employment while she was working at the State Department. Now, Clinton submitted written testimony under oath in October of 2016, but Judicial Watch took issue with her answering that she does not recall. That's always one we get from Hillary Clinton. Oh, I don't recall. I have no recollection. I'm sorry about that. Really? Well, if you're that brain damaged, why are you running for president again? Getting into the conflict zones, the Afghans are turning their backs on the United States after 17 years of war. And the residents of Afghanistan, they've changed their mind. They don't like having the Americans there. They want them to go. Apparently, there was a suicide bomber in Kabul targeting demonstrations protesting the elite Afghani forces, and apparently the most elite U.S.-trained force in Afghanistan suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of the Taliban in an area that was referred to as the country's safest district. And this is another sign that Afghanistan is a lost cause. The Taliban don't want us there. The Afghani people don't want us there. It's time to basically find an exit strategy, try and make it look like, you know, it's our idea that we're getting chased out of Afghanistan here. Meanwhile, Russia has been trying to put together some meetings between the various players from Kabul and the Taliban. And on November 9th, they had this conference. It was attended by an observer from the United States who was not allowed any input. But Russia's trying to get the government of Afghanistan and the Taliban to say, we're tired of fighting, let's come to some kind of an agreement. The U.S. turned around and then accused Russia of hindering an Afghan settlement, that they're just getting in the way, that they should leave it up to the United States. Okay. Now, the United States has come back with a counter-suggestion, and you're going to love this one. They want to suspend next year's Afghan presidential election. Just call it off. Just say, the government you've got now, that's what you're keeping. Okay. Meanwhile, Russia has announced the Taliban's demands for the United States, which is you leave. That's it. Taliban will negotiate with Afghanistan's central government in Kabul only after the United States agrees to leave the country. This is coming from Zamir Kabulov, who's Russia's special envoy for Afghanistan, and basically announced the Taliban's demands on Monday after hosting that international summit on the country's crisis. Alrighty, over in Syria, Bashar al-Assad got the hero's treatment down in Suwaida, which has recently been liberated from the captivity of the Daesh terrorists, literally lifted President Assad onto their shoulders and carried him around the room during an official reception. That had to be a thrill for him. And Assad met with the liberated Syrians and their families just yesterday, as a matter of fact. So apparently Assad's head even grazed the chandelier hanging in the room. And they were all chanting slogans of support for Assad in Syria. So it looks like the U.S. is lost there as well. Apparently over in Turkey, the People's Defense Forces, a military wing of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or the PKK, claimed that it had attacked 6 military bases in the southern Turkish provinces of Hakkari and Simak on November 9th and November 10th. We're going to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And a little bit of interesting breaking news, going to go off on a tangent here. Apparently, Michael Avenatti, Stormy Daniels' porn lawyer, definitely anti-Trump, was out there just trying to cause all kinds of problems. Apparently yesterday was arrested on felony domestic violence charges, and apparently he seriously injured his estranged wife. So he's going to be busy for a little while. All right, getting on back to the war zones, getting on back to Syria, the U.S.-led coalition reportedly used cluster munitions during strikes on Deir ez-Zor. And of course, cluster bombs are very, very bad for the non-combatant civilian populations. And the Syrian media is saying over 60 civilians have been killed or injured in these airstrikes. And of course, the U.S. always comes out and says, well, we're trying to be careful. But understand, there will always be collateral damage in war. But we are really trying to be careful here. Now, a little bit of good news from down in Yemen. Apparently, the Houthi and the current accepted Yemen government have reached a truce of some kind. And so the battle for Hodeidah has come to a halt. Now, whether the Houthi are going to accept the foreign puppet ruler, I think that's probably the most likely case. But at least the bloodshed will stop. At least these people will be fed, and this humanitarian crisis will be over. And the optics of it, of course, are really bad for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's public image has taken a major, major hit. So, apparently the brand new House leadership wants to stop all debate on U.S. involvement in the Saudi war in Yemen. Apparently a measure is being advanced at the behest of House Speaker Paul Ryan, aiming to derail House Continuing Resolution 138, a War Powers Act challenge, which would force an end to the U.S. military involvement in the Saudi-led war. Under the War Powers Act, any individual lawmaker is intended to be able to raise the matter of an unauthorized war for a debate and a vote on the floor. Efforts to do so far have failed, as the House leadership has consistently used the Rules Committee to sidestep the issue. So, over in Ukraine, they're coming up on okay, hang on a second. We've got to take care of some tech issues. And just a second here. All right, we're good. So over in Ukraine, they're coming up on their elections early next year for the president. And right now, former prime minister and leader of the Batkivshchina party, Yulia Tymoshenko, is the clear front runner. This is according to a survey by the Kiev International Institute of Sociology, the Razumkov Center, and rating pollsters. And apparently Poroshenko, President Chocolate, is not doing very well at all. So that will be an interesting contest to watch. Well, Angela Merkel has now joined France Macron in a call for a real, true European army. Trump, of course, has slammed the idea, and a lot of people are very concerned about Germany having a really big army at its disposal. I think they're overreacting. Germany hasn't bothered anybody since 1918. But critics are saying that right now France can't even make their current NATO payments. So is this really all just talk? Yeah, it would seem like it. That the idea is absurd. And by the way, little note, while Francis Macron was condemning nationalism there in Paris, Poland had their largest Independence Day march ever. They are celebrating their sovereignty and their independence here. Turning on down to Gaza, as you know, over the last several days, there was a massive conflict going on, 24 hours of airstrikes, barrage of mortars and missiles into southern Israel. And apparently Hamas and Israel announced a ceasefire. And obviously for the people in Gaza, that was good news. For people in Israel, there was a great deal of anger. And in response to this, Israel's Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman has now resigned in protest over the Gaza ceasefire. And so he's basically stepped on out. He's also objected to Israel's allowing Qatar to deliver $15 million in aid to Gaza last week. So Lieberman is just go for it all, just crush and destroy. And Netanyahu, I think, realizes the optics are not good right now. We'll be right back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking about events taking place down in Israel and Palestine and Gaza. There is now a ceasefire, so the intense bombardment of the last 24 hours is over. This ceasefire did not go over well with Israel's Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, who has now resigned. And Lieberman was like Israel's equivalent of John Bolton. Just go on in and crush them and get it over with. Netanyahu has announced that he personally will take over as Israel's defense minister. And basically he announced that about 2 hours after Lieberman announced his resignation. So Netanyahu is now Israel's defense minister, along with being prime minister, health minister, and foreign minister. It's becoming a one-person government. It's kind of a little odd out there. Okay, last week we were talking about this situation where a group of Hollywood producers got together and they threw a fundraiser in support of the Israel army. And a lot of big stars showed up and they wrote a lot of big checks, and it outraged a lot of people. And we got a lot of phone calls from that. They could basically come up with $60 million to give to Israel's army, which is already getting lots of money directly from the taxpayers of this country here. Well, it's turning out that the optics on this were not very good either. And again, as I said to some of the callers, probably a lot of these people are showing up to this event and they're writing checks in the expectation it will be beneficial for their career. It's a lot of that goes on. And there's the fashionable charities that you show up and you write a check to save baby seals because that gets you on the inside track to get more acting work, or in my case, visual effects work. But that being said, there apparently has been a growing backlash against Hollywood's support of the Israel army, and I'm sure part of it is rooted in what the Israel army is doing. And the other part of it, of course, is rooted in the fact there are a lot of hungry and homeless people in Hollywood itself. And why aren't these celebrities and movie stars who are the luminaries of Hollywood, why aren't they taking care of their own? By the way, just as a side note on that, we have a local celebrity named Bruno Mars, and he just completed his worldwide tour. It was a huge, huge hit. He had 3 final concerts down here at the Aloha Stadium. And unlike those Hollywood celebrities, he didn't write a check for the Israeli army, but he is writing a check to cover Thanksgiving dinner for a huge chunk of the hungry and homeless here on the island. So that's a good guy doing good things with his money here. Over in Iran, their foreign minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, is slamming President Trump's so-called America First agenda as a mistake, saying that Trump's failure to honor international commitments under this approach has only created a global backlash against Washington, and he is absolutely correct. The world now knows that the United States has gone rogue. They can't be trusted to keep their treaty obligations. They're throwing sanctions and tariffs, basically acting like a bull in a china shop here. So I thought when Trump said put America first, that meant we were going to spend our money here in America and build it back up again, build up the manufacturing, not try and browbeat the rest of the world into accepting U.S. hegemonic domination, which I don't think is going to work out. Getting to the economic news, the shopping malls are in trouble. And as you know, we're heading into the holiday shopping season. And the Christmas decorations are already up. We're not even out of Thanksgiving. They've been up for a while. But apparently traditional malls are in such trouble that many of them are just voluntarily shutting down. Those are the really big stores. But those stores are all full. Village in San Pedro, which is a lot of fun if you're in Southern California. So that's coming apart. And they're still trying to blame online sales. But the fact of the matter is, we just don't have money. We do not have money to take into those shopping malls. The American people, we're just barely paying for our food. We're just barely paying our rent. We're just barely paying our gasoline. We're just barely able to afford clothing. So we don't have money left over to go and buy a new whatever it is that's being hawked to us. You know, Claire and I were talking about it just the other night. It's going to be a very thin Christmas, unfortunately. And I think that's going to be true for most Americans. Alrighty, story that came on out from the Economic Collapse blog, and it's commenting on something I mentioned a little earlier in the show. The article is titled, "This Wasn't Supposed to Happen," and it says, "We have definitely deviated from the script. According to virtually all of the experts, the stock market was not supposed to keep plummeting in November. That was supposed to be the month when the market calmed down and things returned to normal. Not happening. And if the stock market keeps going down by these kind of numbers, 200 down on the Dow, it's going to start breaking loose at some point. People are really going to say, yeah, this is it, time to get on out here." In fact, according to this article over at Investment Watch blog, global fund managers are more bearish on the world economy than at any time since 2008. And I can understand the reason for that, because so many of the indicators that signaled we were getting into problems in 2008 are flashing again. A real estate bubble, the return of the mortgage-backed securities. It's like Wall Street was incapable of learning from their mistakes, mostly because they didn't have to pay for them. Up in Chicago, they're about to increase their amusement tax, trying to basically close the city's massive budget deficits. Don't you just like how the economy always works in those wonderful democratic strongholds? So this amusement tax originally applied to concert tickets and other entertainment events, and was expanded to target citizens who have canceled their cable TV by imposing a tax on online streaming services. So apparently, if you are in Chicago and you're using an online streaming service, there will be a 9% surcharge, because by golly, Democrats want your money. They do want your money. Okay, now, Iraq is apparently offering to barter food directly to Iran in exchange for oil. That would be very easy to do. very difficult to stop, and obviously because there's no actual currency involved, no way for the sanctions to be imposed. There's also another theory out there, and this is coming from CoinTrader 21, saying that Iran could start using cryptocurrencies to sell their oil to other countries, because the cryptocurrencies also do not go through the SWIFT system or any other banking system where the U.S. can turn a switch and say it's going to be gone. See, this is the world pushing back against the United States. They're not kowtowing. They're not bowing down and saying, oh, yes, Mr. United States of America, we recognize the wisdom and generosity of your actions, and we won't do anything. They're fighting back. They're looking to evade. Iran's foreign minister is absolutely right. The world is getting sick and tired of this bullying United States, especially as we start to realize it's a hollow bully. Down in South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa has told the European Parliament that his country's land reform will faithfully adhere to the country's constitution with respect to the rights of all of its citizens. Of course, what they're going to do is change the Constitution to allow the government to expropriate land from white landowners without compensation. The land is to be distributed to the country's landless black majority. Now, they already went through this in Zimbabwe, and it turned out to be a disaster. But it makes for good politics. And I'm very alarmed to see all of this anti-white sentiment here in the United States of America. So, alrighty, as I mentioned earlier, the migrant caravan has reached Tijuana. They're chanting, "Viva Honduras, let's see Donald Trump." This includes that group of about 85, mostly LGBTQ migrants, who are now being put up in Airbnbs in upscale neighborhoods funded by their American lawyers. See, there are these lawyers in America who are trying to get these people in. And they've got huge amounts of money to work with where they can put all these migrants up in these Airbnbs in nice neighborhoods. And apparently the locals in these nice neighborhoods are not at all happy about it. And apparently one of the locals was telling KGTV, saying, go away to a shelter. This is not your place. All of you came here. This is a safe area. So even the Mexicans don't want them. So there are photos and a video, actually several videos, showing the first group of migrants with a caravan of about 7,000 to 10,000 Central Americans have arrived at the United States-Mexico border. And in this video, these migrants can be seen scaling a border fence that separates Tijuana, Mexico, and San Diego, California. Okay, where is Immigrations and Customs Enforcement? Where are the police? Where is the military? You can see in the video, there's nobody there. There's just this fence, and they're just able to scamper right on over it. Now, over in Texas, at the Rio Grande Valley, there are 1,000+ troops converging on that border, awaiting the migrant caravan. So I guess it's for certain Texas does not want them, but apparently California doesn't have a problem with that one. So yesterday, units from the 19th Engineer Battalion out of Fort Knox and the 97th Military Police Battalion from Fort Riley spent the day stretching several miles of razor wire along the southern side of an existing border fence near the Brownsville-Matamoros port of entry. Now, there's a filmmaker, Amy Horowitz, who joined the caravan, and the video that she shot is showing that these people are not starving, they're not poor, they're very well funded, they're well organized, and despite that little group of LGBTQ, 90 to 95% of these so-called migrants are military-age men, the same thing we saw over in Europe. Now, as I mentioned earlier to one of our callers, and this is an article out of Warfare Today, weaponized migration is the new battle space. And again, they're saying simply shifting a large mass of people into the enemy's territory produces chaos, conflict, and economic erosion without the aggressor having to fire a single shot or even appearing to have done anything. That's what's been happening over in Europe. That's what's happening here to the United States of America. It really is an invasion. It's a very slow motion one. But we can already see all over Europe. Yes, it's causing chaos and confusion and a lot of crime and a lot of illness. Down in Great Britain, apparently early today, they have had a meeting between Theresa May and ministers from the EU and the UK, and apparently there is an agreement on a draft Brexit deal. And it appears to be a complete giveaway to the EU. It's exactly what the EU wanted. Great Britain will stay tangled up with their immigration policies and economic policies and much of their regulatory compliance, much of which is very nitpicky. But Tories and they're angry. They're saying Theresa May has betrayed the voters by going along with the EU demands. And apparently one of the serious issues came down from Scotland, where apparently Prime Minister Theresa May is giving away fishing rights as part of the agreement. Boris Johnson is out there saying this deal is utterly unacceptable. Well, folks, you know, I've been to the Tower of London, and I happen to know for a fact that big wooden block is still up there. But Theresa May very clearly is not serving the interest of the British voters. She's selling out. Okay. For the disastrous open borders policy. So that is all coming apart. And here's where it gets interesting. You've probably been hearing that the United Nations came up with this global compact for safe, orderly, and regularly migration. It was approved in July by all 193 UN members of the General Assembly, except for the United States, which had backed out. So far, so good. This is the compact in which the United Nations has arbitrarily declared that universal migration anywhere on the planet is a natural human right. But it's already falling apart because Bulgaria is backing out from the deal. So has Hungary, Austria, Poland, the Czech Republic, and Croatia. And, of course, the United States won't either. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Just got a breaking story here. Apparently over in Israel, the Minister of Immigration and Absorption Sofa Lanver, has announced her resignation following the decision of the party leader and Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman to resign. And I'll have to look at a map of the governing coalition, but I'm wondering if we're seeing the beginning of the breakup of the current Israeli government. Because there are a lot of people who have not been very happy with what Netanyahu has been doing. Alrighty, let's wander off into the very bizarre world of political correctness. You're not going to believe this one, but it's Florida and it's Democrats here. Pasco County School District down in Florida, they have a policy of accepting the idea of transgender students. And they allowed a self-described transgender female student regular access to the boys' locker room with, might add, no advance warning to the boys or their parents. And apparently the first time she walked in, she caught the boys literally with their pants down, which caused them some embarrassment. So here's where it gets interesting. With a gag order, school administrators forbade teachers from talking about this policy and ordered a male physical education teacher to supervise the potentially undressed girl in the Chasco Middle School locker room. Now, the teacher refused because he's being put in a position to be looking at a minor female naked, and the school said, no, that's your job to do that. And they said he's going to be transferred to another school as discipline for refusing to do your job in the locker room. I really do think this transgender thing has just gone way, way too far overboard here. And we're still having all these people come on up and say, it's unscientific to say that gender is determined by biology. Yeah, it's very scientific. It's in the DNA. Your gender is in your DNA. It's not just what you make up today and say, today I'm going to be a girl, and tomorrow I'm going to be a boy, and next week I'm going to be something in the middle, and the week after that I'm going to be a ham sandwich, and after that I'm going to be a large overstuffed sofa in the living room. You know, imagining that you're a tree does not make you a tree. Imagining that you are a dog does not make you a dog. One of the things that liberalism is clearly doing is trying to sever the link between politics and the real world. And that's where a lot of this transgender nonsense comes from. Oh, if you just think you're a woman, you can use the ladies' room. It's really absurd. And it's gone on too far, and I'm still not entirely sure exactly what the agenda is, other than to get us all so confused about who and what we are that we can't mentally function any longer. Okay, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he has got lots and lots of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here, share it with everyone that you know. Please copy off all these stories about massive Democratic election fraud. Send them to everybody that you know. This is the most important story we have ever covered on this show. So please donate to RBN, donate to whatreallyhappened.com. We'll be back tomorrow, and Aloha America.